Welcome to Storyhub, a podcast for customer-obsessed D2C leaders. The heroes of your brand story are your customers. Your best customers stay longer and spend more, driving growth as they love your products, brand, and their experience. On the podcast, we'll be talking to D2C leaders, innovative tech companies, and thought leaders from retail and hospitality about their observations, inspirations, and the simple hacks of crafting the experiences that keep customers coming back. Welcome to Storyhub.
And he's like, the zoo's been there for 200 years. You have a job. Stay there. It's consistent. You're fine. You're comfortable. Do not leave.
Mets and Yankees?
I thought I would love to go to a world where change is the way of the world.
I'm thrilled to introduce Ben Segal as our guest on the Crafting Experience podcast. As a fixture in the customer experience world in New York City, I first met Ben on February 2020 at a Zendesk event right before the world shut down. Ben was on stage sharing, as he often does, his customer insights, love of team building, and infectious love of sports. While most recently at standout brands like Freshly and Eyewear, Ben began his work with customers in real life, with some of the most amazing brands in the world, brands where customers are truly fans. The Patriots, Bruins, Mets, and Yankees, venues like Barclays Center, Madison Square Garden, and the Bronx Zoo. I can only imagine how many customer experiences Ben has touched. Ben, welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Andy. I really appreciate you having me on here. And looking forward to a great conversation with you today. So pumped to be here.
Fantastic. So let's get started on the most controversial thing, Mets and Yankees?
Yeah, so definitely grew up a Yankee fan, still Yankee fan today. But interestingly enough, back when I was at LaSalle University and starting out my world in sport management as my major, the Yankees didn't reply to those first applications, and the Mets did. So I was going to take the work where I could get it, and my very first job in sports was as a parking greeter for the New York Mets. And only after that, when the Yankees were opening their new ballpark, was I able to apply, and luckily was able to become one of their ambassadors at the new Yankee Stadium. So I worked at Shea before Citi Field, but I never got a chance to work at the old Yankee Stadium. I worked in 2009, and lucky for me, I got a World Series ring. They won the World Series my first year working for them. So
wow.
That was nice.
Yeah. As a lifelong Mets Jets fan, I've a friend of mine has the orange seats out in their front yard. So,
oh, no way. They got some of them?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it is. So Ben, as we talk about, the customer experience, like when was it that because I talk to folks, you think, like, when did we start thinking about customers? Like when did that idea sort of dawn on you?
Sure. So I would say it's probably not until college, for sure. I don't think I ever thought about customers before that, even though like we all do, right? Even, I have a almost 3-year-old son, Dylan. He doesn't know the term customer, but he understands when he goes into the bagel store and they see him and they think he's cute and they give him a free mini bagel. He understands that that's a good experience. He gets excited about it. So he is having customer experiences even at this young age without being able to define that he had a incredible experience where they went above and beyond for him. So I think we all inherently know it as humans from a very, very, very young age. But I didn't really think about it probably until college. I was a sport management major, like I said, and there was one class that talked about the 80-20 rule, which you and probably others may have heard. It's a big deal in marketing, where something like 80% of your revenue is going to come from 20% of your user base. Very true in the sports world, right? With the hardcore season ticket fans, they're only 20% of your overall user base, but they're giving you the chunk of your money, and so you have to decide how much do you play to them versus the masses that are going to come to one game or buy one hat, not a closet full of jerseys, and that's the first time I thought about customers and how they may be different and may act differently, and like why are some obsessive fans and some more like casual fans. And I think the fan thing is where I started with customers, and then I started thinking about it more and more as I went out in the world and went to a restaurant or went to a bar or just had these different experiences. And I was thinking, Some are good and some are negative. What makes a good experience? What makes a negative experience? And the more and more I was learning about sport management, there was a bunch of different aspects that you could play into, right? Do I want to go into the financials? Do I want to go into personnel management? Do I want to go into venue management and understand like HVAC systems and like how to, like there's a bunch of different things in classes I was taking that really made it feel like this world was big. But what always played to me was those interactions with the fans, with the customers, and how I truly understood that as just a human living out in the world. And I thought, if I could play in sports and do anything, I think that's where I could fit. And so sport management to me quickly turned into customer experience, guest experience, customer service, you name it, but at the venue, right? So like, can I go to a Yankee game? Can this pass around my neck get me into the building? How cool is that? And I'll go in there and I'll interact with the fans because I am one and I get it. And I know what the things they're looking for and I know how to provide that great service. And so, sports was just a venue for me to get into customer service and wound up doing that for over a decade.
Well, it's interesting because we all are customers in so many different aspects of our lives, and then working in this capacity. It's funny the mini bagel example, because I think about the slices of cheese and cold cuts over the counter, and while they're slicing them up to keep the kids at bay.
Yep.
Thinking about your experience and specifically as a parent of two grown children myself, I've been through the rodeo and know the excitement and challenges of a day, at the sports stadium or at the zoo, and the expectations are so high. But with toddlers or little ones, things can go sideways for 100 reasons. We're in New York Metro, so the Bronx Zoo is our zoo, and and if traffic conspired and it took 3 hours to get there, it was I had a different set of challenges. So what sort of things did you sort of see there, and moving from sports into that kind of thing? I'm sure you have some great stories.
Yeah, so prior to the Bronx Zoo, I had done all that work in sports entertainment venues. You mentioned all Yankees, Mets, Patriots, Bruins, MSG, Barclays Center, and then going into managing the Bronx Zoo. I was looking at it through a different set of eyes. The more sports entertainment venues you work in, the more you sort of realize it doesn't matter what the thing is on the field. Where we are out in the concourse, it's the same problems, lost and found and concessions and where's the bathroom, and all these sort of questions are the same. And the zoo was the first unique one to me, where I was coming at it, and number one, we're outside, so that plays a whole different role. And there were 4 different gates that I was tasked with managing, and of each gate there was a different set of staff, and they were positioned differently because every gate is a unique structure. And part of what I was looking at the very beginning was just go to the gate as the manager of guest experience, stand back and just watch how things go and see where we can find improvements or how we can do things better. And I think it was a benefit to the zoo because I was fresh eyes. I had never worked in a zoo before outside of attending. And one of the things I noticed right away was I was watching these families come in, maybe you and your 2 kids, and they just had this long ride in from Connecticut, and they just arrived in the Bronx, and they're frustrated. It took time to park. They just had to pay for parking. They didn't expect they were going to have to do that. And now they're walking into the gate, and they scan their tickets, and they walk through, and the ticket taker handed them a map that says, like, here you go check it out. You'll have a great day. And I thought to myself, that experience could be better. Number one, they didn't give any sort of direction when they handed the map or any sort of suggestions. It was just like, here you go, next. And I always hate that in the customer experience world, like the feeling of next. It's the worst.
Yeah. Not what are you excited to see first?
Exactly. Or suggest to them, like, just look at them and be like, oh, that's a young kid, they should go to children's zoo. Or, oh, that's an older kid, maybe they're going to like the gorillas in Congo. And just like direct them, be like, hey, if I were you, I would start this way. It feels like they got a tip. It feels like they got inside knowledge. It takes 2 seconds to do, but all of a sudden that's a great experience first. Next. So number one, I thought we can spend an extra second on that. And 2, if you see that they have multiple kids, and you hand them one map, you didn't just hand them a map, you just handed them a fight, right? Those 2 kids are gonna be like, I want to hold it. No, I want to hold it. Well, now it's ripped. And now we're starting the day on a negative experience over me just trying to give you a map. So I went up and I asked.
It's treasure versus a conflict.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went up and I asked, like, why are you just giving out one? Like, there were 2 kids, and they were like, oh, we don't give out extra maps. We only have so many. We have to make this last for the whole day. Like, I only have like 3 boxes inside, so I'm not giving away extra maps. I was like, they cost like pennies. Like, if we can give an extra map out once in a while, maybe the kids are going to say, no, I don't want it. Like, it's okay. But at least you're proactively thinking, let me see if I can give them the 2. And so I went around and found out, like, for an extra $1,000, we can order 10 more cases of the same map and get them delivered like next day. The printer had no problem getting us new maps. So I thought that was a necessary expense to make sure that we had oodles of maps, more than we could ever need, so that there was never an issue of like, oh, I don't want to give an extra one, or oh, they ripped it, can I give them another one? And we had extra maps. And that was one way that we were able to make the experience better for thousands of kids without a fight that they didn't have to have.
By priority, because you see that all the time, right? Because what was being prioritized, or what was the focus, was the logistics and constraint on the business's needs versus, right. Hey, how does this change the experience? Because if they love it, if they have a great experience, they're gonna come back. They're gonna become seasoned. They're gonna become members of the zoo.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
gonna become all these different things because it unlocked. Yeah, because I and as a parent, once conflict starts, like then you're seeing the animals, yes, but you're managing the conflict between your children.
Yeah,
mostly.
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't tell how many parents I saw walking out that said, I can't wait to come back. I'm like, why? Like, I missed it. Like, what do you mean you spent the whole day at the zoo? Like, I was mentioning the kids. I was corralling the kids. They saw something. I don't know. I think I missed it. I got to come back with like my friends and come check it out. So
right.
We understood that, and you have to sort of play to the kids and the adults to make sure everybody's having a great time.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of like the great animated movies, right? There's all these plot lines, and depending upon how old you are, you'll catch different things in the plot line, and
that's right.
And certainly with a family outing, you have to both make sure the folks are tended to, they have access to reasonable quality food, and don't hit them too hard on the water prices, and make sure the kids are happy, and that's huge. Wow.
Totally.
Well, that's amazing. So you leave the zoo, and now you're deciding to take on an entire new adventure after being in real life for so long. Tell me about that pivot. How did you come to do that?
Yeah, so I'd been working in sports entertainment venues and in the zoo for 2.5 years or so at that point. And I was doing customer service, but always in person, face to face at the venue. And it was interesting. My wife at that time, girlfriend, had heard about this company, HelloFresh, and started ordering from HelloFresh. So we were getting these like ingredients in the mail with a recipe, and then we would every night pick a different one and go and cook. And it was fun. We had a great time. We were cooking stuff we would have never cooked, like wontons or paella, like different things that I'm not going to make. But if you send me all this stuff and tell me how to do it, it could be a fun night. So we had just moved out together. We were living in our own apartment, and HelloFresh was fun. And I remember one day thinking, HelloFresh is interesting. I know Blue Apron's out there. There's all these like new fun tech D2C e-commerce businesses. I'm sure they're based here in New York, and I'm sure there's some sort of customer service type role. Like, is there a way for me to take all this work I've done in person and spin it into what I see as a new emerging industry of these D2C e-commerce brands? So I literally typed in HelloFresh jobs, and that was my search. And the first thing that came back was Freshly. Had never heard of Freshly. I assumed, based on the word and the like fancy logo and silly F, that it was an offshoot of HelloFresh or a portion of HelloFresh. I didn't even know what it was. It looked like food. My family owns Zabar's on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, so I thought food is in my world. I totally get that. I've worked in the store. Maybe I could be manager of customer experience, CX. First time ever seeing that term at Freshly. So I applied. and went in, had an interview, and went back to a friend of mine who's like a mentor. And I told him that I had this interview and I was thinking about leaving the zoo and going to Freshly. And he said, absolutely not, do not do that. I was like, what do you mean? He said, dude, they're new, they're young, they're startup. He's like, I don't know if you ask these questions, but I doubt there are 100 people. I don't know how much funding they have. They're probably not profitable. He's telling me all these things I didn't even consider. Yeah. And he's like, the zoo's been there for 200 years. You have a job. Stay there. It's consistent. You're fine. You're comfortable. Do not leave. Do not go to Freshly, and you'll be okay. So I called Freshly and I said, I'm not coming. I actually canceled on an interview, and was going to stay at the zoo. And I went back and I had another meeting there, and it was evident to me that things did not move very quickly at the zoo. If you had an idea, the timeline for that idea getting implemented could be 4 or 5 years. Yeah. They use public funds. They have a whole big trust, all these reasons why they were like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I thought I would love to go to a world where change is the way of the world. Mm-hmm. And you suggest something and it can be implemented in real time. You can just walk down the hall, see the CEO and be like, hey, this sucks. We should do this differently. And they go, yeah, just do it. Go ahead. Like there's no red tape. Right. So I called Freshly back and I said, if you would have me, I would love to come back and re-interview and see if you would give me a shot. And lucky for me, they were still open to the idea. And I came in and I was a manager of 12 people in New York City in this little tiny contact center. And over nearly 5 years, scaled that to close to 500 people with multiple BPOs and a big contact center in Phoenix, Arizona, wore all the different hats you can wear in the CX world. And I was definitely the new kid who didn't understand any of these things, but was learning while the plane was sort of in flight. And it was a hell of a ride doing it.
Well, it's so interesting. A couple things that pop out from the comment. First of all, with HelloFresh, I always thought them as I thought of them as food, but the way you say it, it's like it's food plus date night. Yeah. And because it is this interactive experience, and so that's super interesting. It's like groceries become something else when they're a kit.
Yeah, totally agree.
Very, very, very interesting thing. And then obviously as you scaled that, you have all of this mechanism. I think, in the e-commerce world, and certainly with Freshly, you have all of the logistics and the kitchens and like all the moving pieces where, in the venue roles, you have the feedback of smiles or tears or, whatever it is. You have this very organic feedback that you kind of get very little of in this other world. I mean, you get yelled at, or you get someone sending you in an attaboy, but it's the ratio of inputs are very, very different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. It was a whole new world, and it was weird for me to sort of take all that in-person experience and try to translate that into calls, chats, emails, and how to like measure the impact of those conversations and look at different SLAs. I'd never heard the term SLA in my life. That was all a whole new world for me. And I think at the beginning, at least for sure, that was a benefit because I didn't have any of the old world contact center, poor habits that may have been built in with someone else who lived in this space for a long time. Instead, I was looking at it as the other person on the other end of that call, chat, or email is the same as a person who would have been standing in front of me 2 seconds ago if I was at the zoo or Barclays Center or whatever. Yeah. And I think you had to start to see them as those humans. And in my case, I think that was a major asset for me, especially as a leader, as I came in not as a frontline rep, but automatically as a supervisor and then a manager, where I was getting these like escalations where they were super, super, super upset. And others would be scared by that because they may not have had the same experience as I had working with a human face to face and understanding like, well, let's try to get at the root problem here. Let's make sure they understand that they're feeling human, and that usually de-escalates. Instead, they were just like, I don't know what to do. It's just this voice on the other end of the phone, or it's these words on the other end of the chat transcript, or the other end of the email, and I don't know what words to use to like make them calm down, and I'm frustrated. I'm hitting a wall. And I would get on there and be like, what's going on? How are you? Yeah. And they're like, oh, okay, you hear me. And I was like, yeah, that's how this works. Like, as long as we can talk like humans, usually they're going to calm down. There are some that are absolutely crazy and they're out of their mind, and like, that's okay. But as long as you stay calm, cool, collected, and they're the ones who are like aggressing at that point, then you're in a position to be like, look, man, there's nothing I can do for you. But like, you have to stay calm, cool, collected, and most other people will come and meet you where you are. And that wound up being like a major asset for me in the CX space. And it 100% came from the thousands of interactions that I had in person where you couldn't run away. They were standing in front of your face. Yeah.
Now, with a massive scaling, tech operation, and that that we both lived through, you're building a machine out ahead, and that machine has a bunch of moving parts, and those moving parts can interact with each other in different ways. And I like to say, customers can get pinched in the gears and of all the machinery. Do you have any examples of when you were scaling where you saw a particular human experience that was sort of being handled in a way that afforded it some optimization options?
Sure. The one that comes to mind is around accommodations, and how you handle certain things that are inherently going to go wrong, and how we respond to them, and what is an appropriate accommodation. I think was where we could, as a leadership team, sort of empower the agents to have enough tools in their toolkit to say, I can actually make this thing better. I can help you. So in the past early days, there may not have been any sort of accommodation guide, and it was up to the agent to decide, what am I going to do for this person, or what am I not going to do for this person? Mm-hmm. And you wind up with some who are like the bleeding hearts of the world that get on the phone and hear that it's an older woman and is struggling with X, Y, or Z, and they go, listen, I'm going to take care of you. Yeah. Refund the whole thing, full credit off next week. And they're going, oh my goodness, are you crazy? And I'm like, that's nice, but maybe like a little too nice. Let's see about that. Versus someone else who's like, I hate people. I hate this job. I don't want to be on this chat at all today. And someone's really complaining on chat, and they're like, yeah, sorry, nothing I could do. Sorry, you're done. Bye. And they're pushing them out the door. And so I thought if we could put some sort of guardrails there around what is a minimum amount that I think is appropriate, and that you guys are now cleared to do. You're actually going to be dinged, so to speak, for not meeting this minimum requirement. You have to give something here in these cases.
Oh, really? Okay.
And don't go overboard. Here's like the maximum you can give. Here's the escalated version you can give. Like, let me put the guardrails here as an accommodation guide, trying to map out all the different ways that we think people may or may not need some sort of accommodation, what's appropriate given each circumstance, and enable the agents to have that at their fingertips. Then by you just creating that one doc, you're now impacting these thousands and thousands of conversations across a team of hundreds of people, and you're having some sort of say on, what is your accommodations as a percentage of your revenue. You can then track this appropriately. You can look at it agent by agent, like who's doing more or less. Are we seeing that longer conversations lead to more accommodation? Like all these things that we had very little insight to before, we now were gaining like much more granular insight into what's going on, while at the same time creating a more consistent and I would call approved customer experience that most people would be happy with.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as you're saying that, what I'm thinking about, different scenarios, it's like, I don't know, there was, the portion of meat was too small, or oh my God, something was bad in it and it was a family meal, or, we had guests over or something. Like there all of these human experiences around food. I mean, food, and the sharing of food is an incredibly, central human dimension.
Yeah.
And so, imagining someone on the other side, getting sort of what they perceive as mistreated, it's over. And obviously, as a subscription business, your focus is on the long-term revenue, and therefore they need to stay around for the revenue to be long-term. So
for sure. There was another thing we did I want to call out too, that sort of gets to the human element of this. I'll be brief on it, but if you expect dinner tonight and you do not go shopping or you do not order dinner because that box is supposed to arrive tonight, and then that box with 12 meals does not arrive tonight, there's only so much a refund or an in-house credit is going to do to appease, because you're then left with the real life problem of, I don't have dinner for the family tonight because I was banking on you guys.
Yeah.
I paid you, I ordered this weeks in advance, and it's supposed to hit today. You told me it was going to hit today, and for whatever reason, probably even outside the control of the company, it could just be the carrier was delayed, or the guy just didn't feel like finishing his route that night. He was running behind. For whatever reason, they're not delivering the food today, and now you're left like this. We were in a constant state of trying to see how we can solve for that, and it's so hard to say I can't get you food right now. We wound up finding a company. I don't even know if they're around anymore, if they've changed names, but I think it was called I Feel Goods. I Feel Goods was like an app that you could add in on Zendesk, and the agents could have some pre-populated amount of dollars, maybe $500 or $1,000 or something. And if they came across a scenario like this where the person's like, okay, you don't understand, I need something right now tonight,
right,
we could quickly spin up a $50 gift card for Seamless or Grubhub and send it via email. And they could go and get dinner tonight.
Yeah.
Be like, hey, listen, I can't help you. I could give you an in-house credit, or I can give you $50 to go get dinner tonight. Is that more actionable? Is that actually solve your problem? Most people were like, yeah, give me that. I want $50 off my Grubhub tonight because I got to go get dinner now. And yeah, your food's going to show up tomorrow. Great, you help me tomorrow. But I need food right now. And that app was really, really fantastic. And it was a surprise because they're like, wait, you're sending me money to it's your competitor, right? I'm either eating from Grubhub or Freshly tonight. That you are a one-to-one competition there. We're like, we get it, but we can solve for the rest of the week. We can't solve for tonight. Grubhub can. We're going to give you $50.
Right. I know. I love that because it's recognizing the reality of their lives. It's not the orders are the orders, but you stand, you leave me on the altar once,
right?
And I'm going to be very, very hesitant to subscribe next month.
Exactly.
So no, that's been great. Well, Ben, this has been an amazing conversation. The maiden voyage of Crafting Experience podcast. And you dug into the exact things, these human moments, and how we as experienced professionals sort of understand our best customers. That 80-20 that you talked about, and how to acknowledge the human reality. So we craft, I think of it as memorable experiences to remarkable experiences, because anything else, customers have many options in this world today. So
totally.
Thank you very much for your time, and again, appreciate the camaraderie and all of your knowledge.
Of course, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Great, absolutely. Really appreciate Ben being on the podcast today, and for our maiden voyage. So thank you so much for the time, and look forward to bringing you more episodes.